Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Lehar Tawde, the co-founder of ConnectEd, which is a technology platform that specializes in executing large-scale tech-enabled development projects aimed at government schools and its students. Hi Lehar, welcome to ELI.
Hi, thank you so much, Priya. Really, fortunate to be here. Thank you so much.
I would request you to introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Absolutely. Like Priya said, my name is Lehar Tawde. I co-lead an organization called ConnectEd Technologies. We are essentially an education technology social enterprise, wherein we create tailor-made education technology tools which are aimed at making quality education accessible to government schools and government school students. So we've been in this space for the last 7 years, and in that time frame we've essentially specialized in executing large scale developmental programs that are aimed at government schools and government school students. We currently cater to more than 2 lakh students across 8 states in India. We are funded by some of India's largest socially responsible organizations, and all the products that we deploy to our audiences, they're completely free for the end user. So we don't charge a penny to these government school students, and yeah, so that's what we do.
Okay, we'll talk about the revenue model later on. Can you
Absolutely.
tell us a bit more about connected technologies? Like what kind of projects do you take and where do you specialize in?
Right. So there are, in a sense, there are three types of projects that we undertake. Pre-COVID, it was two. We've added one, since COVID. The first solution that we've provided, to our user base, which is government schools and government school students,
Mm,
and to our clients, which are essentially socially responsible organizations. The first solution that we provided is essentially the large-scale digitization of government schools. As part of this, what do? We essentially equip government school classrooms with tailor-made e-learning infrastructure.
mhm,
And by e-learning infrastructure, I'm not just talking about hardware, but I'm actually talking about tailor-made educational content which is completely in sync with the state board, entirely in vernacular Indian languages, covering all subjects, chapters, concepts, right? So one, there's that content that we pair with the hardware that's important. The other part that we specialize in is basically bundling the hardware and content with end-to-end servicing, wherein we take care of everything from government liaising, getting in the approvals, to identifying schools, communicating with the schools on behalf of our funders, to actually deploying these solutions in government schools, training the teachers, monitoring how the project is performing,
mm,
reporting on the project's performance to our clients, to the government, and subsequently also doing an impact evaluation to actually be able to tell the government or to tell our funders what has really been the impact of our work on the understanding levels and the academic performance of the child. So this is the first solution, which is essentially the large scale digitization of government schools.
mm,
This is essentially the solution with which the organization started off. But as you would know, and as the viewers would know, that during COVID, government schools across the country came to a halt,
correct.
and with that, the education of government school students particularly came to a halt as well, because
Mm,
unlike students from private schools, they weren't able to migrate very easily to online education,
mm,
because to be very honest, most edtech players in the country focus on private school audiences, typically in your tier 1 and tier 2 cities.
true.
So that is where the team over here at ConnectEd Technologies, we got together and we started wondering what can we do in this situation to make things better for government school students. How can we deliver value in this time when schools themselves are shut?
Mm,
And after having our brainstorming sessions internally, after interacting with numerous government authorities, interacting with government school teachers and the beneficiaries that we've catered to over all these years, what we essentially realized is that the real need was at this point of time for somebody to make quality education accessible remotely, digitally. right? And that is where the second solution for ConnectEd comes in. Since COVID, what ConnectEd Technologies has been doing is that we've been making our educational content, which, like I said earlier, is entirely curriculum linked, entirely in vernacular languages, covers
Mm,
all subjects, chapters. We've been making this content digitally available to government school students for free,
mm,
wherein they can use any device and connectivity that they have to come and access this educational content, and not just view it while they have internet connectivity, but they can also download these videos onto their phone and view them later.
mm,
And it's not just educational content that we provide through this platform. We also conduct exercises and activities, so a child can actually self-assess how much has he or she understood, and based on that understanding can either rewatch a video or focus on particular aspects which they may not have understood. So that's the second solution that we've been undertaking. Obviously, it's not as easy as it sounds. So it's not like we've just been taking our material and making it digitally available. Along with this, we work with government authorities at the state level, at the district level, at the block level. We work with government school teachers and principals, really work with the entire public schooling education, public schooling ecosystem
mm,
to make sure that parents and students are aware that such a facility is now available for them free of cost, and that they can use any device and connectivity that they have to access quality education, just like children from private schools. So it's essentially a complete ecosystem that comes together to spread this awareness and get children onto the platform. So that's the second solution that we've been providing. Lastly, for the last couple of years, we've also been running mass awareness campaigns on key themes such as nutrition, waste management, water conservation. During COVID, we've even been looking at a campaign on mental health during COVID-19, and we've been rolling out these mass awareness campaigns as well to government school students. We pre-COVID, we used to do this in school, so we used to essentially leverage our e-learning infrastructure in government schools to essentially spread these awareness campaigns.
mm.
Now that schools are shut, we have been rolling out these awareness campaigns digitally. So that's essentially what we do. Those are the three main solutions that we've been providing.
Okay. Can you tell us how it all got started? Like, why you are doing this, and what were the first few projects that you undertook, and how did you
Absolutely.
got those projects? Because for the first time, it's a struggle to get projects.
Absolutely. So, ConnectEd Technologies did not come into being as a company first, right?
Mhm,
ConnectEd Technologies, I think, came to being first as a sentiment between my partner Laveen Mirchandani and myself. We both know each other from our time together at Narsi Munji Institute of Management Studies, Bombay. So we
mhm,
studied business administration together. Following our graduation, we were both in our respective jobs, and at some point, I think both of us felt that we had these great opportunities in front of us, where we had these amazing jobs. They were very comfortable. They rewarded us very well, but we just felt that they weren't challenging us enough, and the work that we were doing was probably not having as much impact as we would like it to have on the ecosystem at large,
mhm,
right? So the first sentiment was that you want to do something challenging, you want to do something impactful. We at the very outset did not have this in our minds that we want to do something in the school education space. We just knew we wanted to do something challenging and impactful. And we frankly started looking at the world around us, and we started thinking, what can we do? What sector do we contribute to?
mhm,
Because obviously any sector would be challenging. It really depends on you. What challenge is it that you want to take on yourself, and where is it that you want to create impact? So we really just started looking at the observing the world around us, and seeing where is it that we could contribute. And the one sector that kept coming back to us was education, right? And the reason why it kept coming back is because everybody in this country has always known that the public education system or the government schooling system in India is not working to its best. We
mhm,
may not know what the problem is, but everybody in this country will agree that it's not the best. So we also came from the same school of thought that, oh, you know what, education is something that is not working the best. And that is something that we felt very strongly towards, because we felt that wherever we were in our lives, wherever we were in our careers, was purely because of the education that we got. and in a way, if you think about it, it holds true for everybody, you, me, for everybody viewing this, wherever we are in our lives, is purely to do with the education that we've received. And if you think
Mm,
about the education that you've received, it's entirely to do with the socio-economic background of your family. It's entirely to do with where you come from. Where are you born? In a city? Are you born in a tier 2 town? Are you born in a village? So essentially the education that we've all received is basically a combination of socioeconomic background and location.
mm,
And if you think that your entire life trajectory is determined by the socioeconomic makeup of your family background and where you were born, uh, it just makes you realize that your entire life has essentially been shaped by something which was a matter of chance.
okay.
Our lives could be completely different if we were born in a different household, or in a different city. And that's a very humbling feeling, right? To know that you're here and you're fortunate to be here, but you could have very well been somewhere else. And when Laveen and I started looking at education, we had this realization, and we just felt that in today's day and age, where technology is bringing people closer, it's making information so accessible. We just felt it was unfair that something as critical or as important as quality education was still being determined by socioeconomic factors, or by location, or your ability to afford something.
Mm,
So that is where that sentiment came, where we were like, okay, we want to do something, and we want to do something in the public schooling space, in the government schooling space. However, besides this sentiment, Laveen and I knew very little about how this system works. What are the problems that plague it? What is being done with technology? Is there scope for technology to come in and make a difference?
mm,
So while we were in our jobs, we took about 6 months time to conduct secondary research on this entire space, to understand the government schooling system in India, the problems plaguing it, what kind of solutions are there, what are the kind of solutions that people are developing with technology, what is the impact that's being had. So we did what is essentially called as a secondary research. We did our secondary research for a span of 6 months while we were in our jobs, and that is when I think we both had a decent amount of understanding of how this space works.
mm,
But secondary researches are only that good because essentially you're reading somebody else's work. You haven't gone out there, you haven't seen it yourself. So we did our secondary research, and that was the time when we both actually quit our jobs. I'm talking about 2014. We both quit our jobs, and we decided that we first and foremost, we want to conduct a primary research. We want to do this ourselves. We want to do our own research to actually see what's happening on ground. What is happening with government schools? What are the problems plaguing them? What is happening with technology? Is it effective? How can it be made effective?
mm,
And the moment we decided that, we quit our jobs, we moved to this geography called Palghar, which is about 2.5 hours away, 2.5, 3 hours away from Bombay. We went to Palghar, and we started, interacting with the government authorities over there, with the perspective of, conducting a primary research out there.
mm,
And they were very, very cooperative over there. At that point of time, the Palghar district was being chaired by a very young collector, by the name of Mr. Abhijit Bangar. He was very
mm,
supportive, and he's the one who actually gave us access to a lot of government data got to with government schools, which
mhm,
essentially gave us a lot of quantitative information of how schools were functioning, what were the problems plaguing it, what kind of solutions were deployed, what is the impact of those solutions. Along with that, he also gave us access to 570 government schools, where we could actually go and interact with stakeholders to understand from them through interaction, what are the problems plaguing them, what kind of solutions are being deployed, what kind of technologies are being deployed, what is the impact of it, is it having a difference, what can have a difference. So a lot of information really came to us by virtue of this primary research. And that is where, if I was to just summarize it, what we understood was that there was a fair amount of work being done with technology, even in 2014,
mm,
when it comes to government schools. However, the difference, at that point of time to what it is today is, at that point of time, whatever work was being done with technology in government schools was actually work that was done with technology, which was designed for private schools or schools in urban areas
mm,
was technology which are designed for students who go to private schools. And it's just that this technology was being provided to a government school because somebody wanted to do good.
mm,
Now, this is obviously the right sentiment to have, because you essentially want to provide top of the line equipment, top of the line content, top of the line, paraphernalia, to a government school. But what is really very important to understand is that every piece of technology around us is designed keeping a user in mind, right? So just taking an edtech product which is designed for a private school and providing it to a government school, it might be the best intention, but it may not be the best thing to do operationally, may not
mm,
be the best thing to do from an impact perspective. And we realized this from the secondary research, from the primary research, that a lot of people were doing this. A lot of people were pumping in a lot of money into improving government schools, but with technology which was not meant for government schools,
mm,
which is essentially when Laveen and I took it on ourselves, and we said that, you know what, this is not fair. It is not fair for the students. It's not fair for the teachers. It's not fair for the people who are spending this money as well, right? So what do we want to do? We want to come together to create education technology solutions which are designed specifically for government school students, not just from a hardware perspective, right, but more importantly from a content perspective. The content should be in line with, the state board curriculum which is followed in government schools. The content should be in vernacular languages because that is what is
mm,
followed in these schools. The content should be as per the grasping power of the child in these schools. The
mm,
focus should be on basic fundamentals because that is where government schools in this country fall back, right?
mm,
Similarly, services should be provided to the last mile. It shouldn't be difficult for somebody to provide these technologies to a government school. It shouldn't be inconvenient. It shouldn't be where, they have to take something and give it themselves, because just by spending money they are doing good enough. Somebody should be there ready to provide them with the services that is required to make a project like this successful. So that
mm.
is where we came in, and we said that we want to do this, and that is where Connected Technologies as an organization came in. So yeah, so that's essentially how things started off.
Okay. Uh, I had one very interesting question for you. Can you
Right.
tell us how the Indian education system is evolving right now, especially post-pandemic, where you see the rise of edtech apps, which convince students that if they don't learn from their app, their career is doomed, and the fiasco that follows, and the government schools which are also trying to digitize and catch up with the pace, and there are private schools as well. But
Right.
essentially learning is not you don't need to pay for learning. With the apps like YouTube are there, you can simply search on YouTube on any topic and you can learn. And school's role is not to teach you stuff, but rather teach you how to learn, how to research yourself and how to learn yourself. So
Right.
with that in context, can you tell us what are the different trends and direction that you are seeing in the entire education sector, especially the primary and secondary education
Right.
sector? uh,
Right.
yeah.
So, I mean, when you talk about the Indian education system, I think the Indian education system by itself is extremely large, right?
Mm,
Because obviously, when you talk about the education system grows in various categories. You have preschool, you have primary school, middle school, high school, secondary, or so on and so forth. So different categories to it. I think the particular segment which I have my expertise in, which I can talk about, is definitely the schooling phase, right? Now, even when you talk about the school education system, which is a subset of the Indian education system. When you talk about the school education system also, there are two parts to it. There really, India essentially is a country where there are two worlds that live,
mm,
right? In our school education system, there's obviously the private school education system, right? And then there is essentially what we call as the government school education system, right?
mm,
The private school education system is again a very different ballgame altogether, because when you talk about private school in this country, I think private schools in this country offer as good education as you could receive anywhere in the world, right?
Mm.
There are probably some schools which are doing it a little bit better than the others, but by and large, if you talk about private schools in India, I would say that our private schools are doing a phenomenal job. During the pandemic, unfortunately, private schools have had to shut down just like all other schools, and students from private schools have essentially migrated to an online format of teaching and learning. And this has been something which obviously it has been a difficult transition for these students as well,
Mm.
because nothing really beats the educational experience of learning in class, with a
True.
teacher in front of you. Uh, but nevertheless, it has been to some extent, as compared to the children that we work with, it has been a little easy for them, because at least these children have the luxury of devices and connectivity, which allows them to at least see their teachers and see their peers in a virtual environment, right? And in this situation, I think private schools in India are trying their level best to cope up with the current circumstances. Obviously, there was a first wave which came in, which was obviously like a world of a shock, because nobody had seen or been in something like that. Then obviously there was a second wave, by when private schools and private school students were a lot better prepared to handle online education, so to speak. And now again, there's a third wave that's happening, and I think by now, online education for private schools and private school students has essentially become de facto, right? It's a world that everybody is now used to. However, when you talk about the government schooling system, the other world, or the world that we come from, um, that's where this entire situation is very, very different, right? So when you talk about government schools across the country, pre-COVID, I mean, I would agree to anybody and everybody else that government schools across the country, pre-COVID, it's not like they were functioning to their level best. It's not like the quality of education that they were offering was as good as any private school or any other school in the world. Definitely, there were areas which were lacking, and the reason for this is because our government schooling system is extremely large, extremely complex, extremely fragmented, uh, beyond most people's imagination. Truly, like for example, India has, if I'm not mistaken, India has government schools that teach in 28 different languages. So a government school in Maharashtra teaches in a very different language than, let's say, a government school in Gujarat, or even, let's say, Karnataka or Goa, because and these are neighboring states. So you can imagine what it's like when you talk about different states in the country.
Mm.
So language is a complexity. The reason why I said government schools are fragmented is because unlike private schools, where a child can enroll in right after preschool, or at times even during preschool, and then go on to study till the 10th or 12th grade. Unlike that ecosystem, government schools are typically staggered. A child enters into, a preschool is separate, the primary school is till 4th standard. Then you get out of that school, you have to go to another school for middle school, which is typically from grade 5 to 7 or 8. Then you go to your higher schooling, which is 8, 9, 10, or 9, 10. So really, if you imagine you're in a middle school where there are people from different schools in your classroom. And now imagine being a teacher catering to a class full of children who've come from different schooling backgrounds. It is difficult even for a teacher. I'm not saying that the government schooling system does not work because teachers are bad. I'm saying that the entire system is very complex. It
Mm.
is very fragmented. It is very large, which is why it hasn't been able to function the way it should be. It's not a problem of one particular stakeholder. You can't blame it on the government. You can't blame it on a teacher. You can't blame it on the student. You can't blame it on any one party.
Mm.
It's an ecosystem which is designed in a way where it has loopholes, right?
Okay.
However, entities like us, we've been fighting for the last 7 years to bring in technology, because if you think about technology, one of the hallmarks of technology is that you can standardize delivery, right? You and I are having this call, and by virtue of this, we both can understand that this is standardized delivery. Today, this recording you can play, let's say, even after 10 years, and this delivery will still be the same, because technology allows you to standardize, right? If we were to conduct this session in the highest quality possible, from a content perspective, from a messaging perspective, this interaction will retain its quality even 10 years hence. True. Right? Which is not the case with in-person interactions. So for the last 7 years, Connected Technologies has truly been trying to say that technology needs to come into government schools, that high quality content in vernacular languages needs to play a bigger role in government schools, because that is how you can improve the quality of lecture delivery in government schools, and that's how you can standardize the quality of lecture delivery in government schools. But by doing this, while we've definitely had tremendous support across various stakeholders across various locations, it's definitely been a little bit difficult, because when you talk about improving government schools, and when you talk about improving the quality of education by bringing in quality educational content in vernacular languages, when you talk about government schools, the one thing very important that you need to do is you need to throw in hardware, right? Because how else will content be delivered, right? So hardware needs to come in, and hardware is always very expensive. The moment hardware comes in, and you're talking about government school teachers, you need to throw one extra element, which is servicing, because you need to make these government school teachers equipped to deal with this hardware that you provided, right? Which essentially is something that makes this entire process, while it is very scalable and very effective and very efficient, it still makes it a little slower because there's that hardware element into it, right? And then now COVID has happened, and during COVID, by virtue of government schools being shut, I think what happened was, suddenly government school students, their parents, their teachers, everybody was in this situation of helplessness, wherein they realized that, wait, our schools are shut, we still need education for us, for our children, for our students. How do we do this? And they naturally ended up realizing, you can say overnight, that smartphone, that you have, and that internet connectivity that smartphone has, might just be the way to do this, right? And as they saw private school students, making that shift to online education, I think somewhere government school students, government school teachers, and parents of government school students started realizing that, wait, if they are doing this, we should probably also be doing this. And I think over the last 2 years, what we have seen as Connected Technologies is that there's been a huge shift, right, in mindset. Suddenly, you have children from government schools who are just as passionate about learning using their smartphones, learning over the internet. More than students, I think what is really heartening to see is that parents have warmed up to this idea. And that essentially is where a huge shift has happened when you talk about the government schooling space. So like I said, the private schooling space in India has always been doing well, and it is still doing as good as what it possibly could. It's the government schooling space particularly, which specifically in the last 2 years has made a world of a switch. And that's phenomenal. The government from its end also has made some great advances in the last 2 years. Particularly, you've had the new education policy, the new national education policy being adopted finally in 2020, after several years, after more than 2 decades almost. Right, that's a huge step for government schools across the country, because essentially what the new education policy means, the adoption of a new education policy means, is that the entire educational process, which was being followed across all schools, more specifically towards government schools, is now going to become more in tune with the time. Right, it's going to be more in tune with the needs of today, and hence is going to equip government school students to grow up to be adults who can better contribute to the entire ecosystem. So that's so the entire adoption of the NEP 2020, as they call it, has been very important. I think the government over the last 2 years has really been trying to promote online education amongst government school students. They've tried to do this by developing their own content, by making their own repository of material which children can access. They've been doing this by subsidizing delivery of devices and connectivity. There are states in the country who have announced free devices and connectivity to students in critical grades, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So I mean, there's a lot that's happening in the space, and to a great extent this is all positive. So yeah, that's my outlook currently on what's happening, but obviously there's a lot to be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. There is always a scope for improvement. Uh, Due to interest of time, I just have one more question left,
Sure.
which is, tell us about the lessons that you have learned as an entrepreneur, which we can take away and apply to our ventures.
Sure. um I mean, it's. I think it's by far the most difficult question to answer, because as an entrepreneur, I think there is no one lesson, or there's no fixed set of lessons that one learns during their journey. I think entrepreneurship is a lesson in itself, which you learn on a daily basis. I think over the last 7 years, I think every day has been a lesson in itself. But there are a lot of things that it teaches you. It teaches you. It really teaches you, first and foremost, humility, right? Because if you are starting off as an entrepreneur, I think one thing that you really need to ensure is that you're humble, because you're really uh, starting off pursuing your dream, and no one person in this world is capable enough of fulfilling their dream by themselves, right? It's always a team effort. And and it's not just a team effort, from the perspective that, oh, if I have the capital, I can throw capital and I can get a team and my team will work with me to satisfy my dream. It's not as easy as that. It's way beyond money. You need people who believe in you, who trust in you, who want to build your vision. So humility is very important to start off with, and humility is also something that you learn in the process, because it's truly a humbling experience to see how so many people eventually at some point of time come together to make your vision come to life. I think entrepreneurship teaches you responsibility. To start with, you need to really be responsible for yourself, for your actions. Subsequently, you need to be responsible towards the actions of your organization. And as your organization grows, you really need to be responsible towards the people who constitute your organization, as well as you need to take responsibility for their actions as well,
Mm.
right? So it is something that takes a lot of responsibility, but like I said, it also teaches you a lot of responsibility. And lastly, I think what entrepreneurship takes and gives uh, is a lot of enjoyment, I would say. If you're starting off pursuing something that is your dream, your passion, it's very enjoyable to start with. And as you pursue it more and more, it continues getting more enjoyable, because every day throws up a new challenge. And in the process of living up to that challenge, you're developing yourself, which is again an enjoyable process. So yeah, so those are three top giveaways, from entrepreneurship as a journey. But I'm sure, like I said, there are numerous more. I think uh, I don't think anybody can really summarize it into like a handful of things. It's a journey in itself, and I would highly recommend it to anybody who really has their heart set on doing something.
Absolutely. Well, on this note, I think we are at the end of the discussion. It was a pleasure to host you here at ELI, and thanks for your time, Leher. I would say my best wishes
Thank you so
for.
much. Thank you so much, Priya. Thank you so much for having us.